Learning Parakeh Halacha Yutes. The Rambam says, "L'sishra isha mulsin." A woman should not soak grains. Shetei toilech biyoda, that she takes with her lemerchos. They used to use this as a sort of a scrubbing device. So we learned in the Peirush, the Maggid Mishnah cites the Mishnah in Psochim 39b that they would take this and they would use it as to rub off the dirt from the skin to become clean. Now we do it with soap. You can't soak the grain because they will become chometz. But when they're dry, she can put it over her body and therefore remove the outer dirt. Now, person should not chew wheat. Wheat and al-makosi and place it on his wound. Because the wheat will become chometz from the spit in his mouth. They did this as a healing process. Maggid Mishnah cites the Mishnah. Again, what we had before, that you shouldn't, that this is specifically said in the Mishnah. And Rashi explains that you can place it dry on the body, even though that after she's washed herself, there is water on her body. And the Rosh explains that it means not water, but rather sweat, not actual water. And after she washes herself with hot water or with soft water, it's forbidden to use morsin because then it will come in contact with water and become chometz. But the intent is that we are not fearful that it will become chometz from the zayah. But before she uses the cold, or then she can use it to put on her body. And it continues and concludes, therefore the Rif writes that today that women do not know how to take off the grains from their body, that water shouldn't touch them before during Pesach. Therefore, she shouldn't use morsin even if her body is dry. Rabbeinu Benoach says that the rule of not chewing chitim to put on his wound is because they become chometz, isn't because it's also to have refuah with Isurei Hanoah. He's doing it not the natural way. Mutter even the reason is because before he puts it on, before his body benefits from it, so the benefit is not the kederach hanoah. He's over by your motzah, or even before he has a benefit of healing. And he says to be a choila has a sakana, then for sure you can do anything because nothing stands in the way of pikuach nefesh, as we find in Hilchos Chametz except for the three major averos. That if a person is so sick that he has to have chometz on Pesach, you give it to him. Menoyach asks a question: why shouldn't he just nullify it before it becomes chometz, and he won't be over by yirah? And he answers that bittul doesn't help. Why? Because if it's hefka, he's obviously using it, so he wants to use it. Two, even according to Rae Gann Family, that bittul is the bittul makes it that it's not his. Here it didn't go out from his rishus because he intends to be healed from it. You do not place flour into a charoises, which was a type of a vegetable mix, like we make charoises on Pesach, because the flour will become chometz. And there's a text that says you should burn it immediately, because we said that if you mix juice with water, it causes it to become chometz quickly, even more so than water alone. Now, you don't put flour into mustard. It's not like kemach that you put in charoises, because you can't even eat it even right away, because it becomes swiftly to chimutz. But by mustard, even though it goes quickly to chimutz, you can eat it. The Maggid Mishnah cites the same Mishnah in Psochim, that you don't place kemach into charoises or into chadol, And if he did do it, you should eat it right away. Ameya oisa. The Gemara says, Amav Kahana, and it's only by Chardal that they disagree. But B'toich HaRoisas, everyone agrees you should burn it. And we learned, according to the Halacha, is that way, and that's the Rif, Paskins that way, and some of the Goinim as well. Now, if does make Peirush cause things to become Chometz? My Mishnah says that for Roisas there's Chometz. There's also vinegar, and therefore it hurries the process. For Roisas B'chadol, there's also water. If not, we already mentioned that make Peirush that doesn't have mayim, it doesn't have water, does not become Chometz. The Hilchos Chametz questions why the Rambam doesn't write that the whole Isser is only when there's water in it, because May Peirush do not cause chimutz. And also in Mosdos he should explain that only if it has water does he have to rush. Therefore, he says it would seem, according to that this is like Rashi, that even without water, it's called Chometz Nuksha, even though it's not actual Chometz. And even though May Peirush do not cause complete chimutz, but you're not chayiv cause, it's Chometz Nuksha. That's not Chometz Gomor, but it's also to eat it as a lav. There's no chorus. There are the Rishonim that say that it doesn't cause any chimutz at all, and then you would be allowed to eat it even on Pesach. The Ramach quotes a Yerushalmi that says that somebody who causes chometz with apple juice, which is water of fruits, it's forbidden. Paragimel, the Yerushalmi says if there's also only if there's water in vinegar or in beer or in the milk whiskey that they had, it's Chometz, because they don't have water, they consider it Chometz Nuksha with a mixture, and there's no one says you have to get rid of it. When it says in the Bavli that you cannot heat up or roast two grains at the same time, because the water of one might go out and cause the other one to become chometz, that's not a problem, because it means that May Peirush do not cause chometz, a total chometz, and therefore we do not make an edict on it. But that you do not bake them right away is not chometz nuksha b'taruvis. It's called chometz nuksha be'en, which is there, and therefore you have to burn it. And he concludes, I heard that Sefer Muga, in the text that's correct to the Rambam, we find Halacha Beis, even without Mayim, you're over the lav, because it's Chometz Nuksha. So we would say that according to the Rambam, there is such a concept. In Peirush HaMishnayos, the Rambam explains, Perik Beis Mishnah Zayin, Morsin is the hard outer cover that wheat has. Subin is the inner, softer cover. Rashi says subin is the outer cover that when you begin to separate the flour, and morsin is a thin cover that stays in the sifter after you sift out the flour. It brings also the Shittas Rambam that both of them you cannot put into water because they become chometz. Halacha l'maisa, Shulchan Aruch paskins, you do not soak morsin for chickens at all, not even with chalita. Mishum part of it means never. It tells you that not like the Rambam, that he gave you 3 ways to do it. We could do it in Halacha Ches, and he said you can do it right away, or he stays there to make sure there's nothing left, or as long as they peck it at it, it's okay, or he turns it over the whole time so that it's busy, and therefore it doesn't become chometz. The Mishnah says awesome. The Bala argues that you shouldn't put it in the water even less than a shiur mil, and on the second eighth of the Rambam, that as long as they peck at it, it doesn't become chometz. The Ritva disagrees, because it's not like a continuous flow of drops of rain, because it's random, and therefore you can't rely on that. But on the third idea that he should work it himself, the Bir Halacha says there's no one who disagrees. It could be that all of them admit that lachatchila you should not do so. It's mutter lachatchila. Just like any dough, you can, as long as you're working it, as long as you're working it, it doesn't become chometz. But since the Mechaber says you unequivocally, without exception, that you do not soak it in for Tanagolim, therefore he seems to disagree, and he says that you cannot do it in any way, fashion, or form to put the grain in water, even if you're going to turn it over. Now, the Mishnah Berurah cites that chalita means you cook up the water and then you place it in the flour or the grains. Even though chalito does not make it chometz, still it's also, like the Rambam says, the item doesn't do it anymore. Maybe he won't cook it up enough. The Mahama continues. Isha, regarding a woman bathing with the grains, even if they're dry, she shouldn't do so. And in Siman Tov Samach Aleph 461, he says a person should not chew wheat and put it on his wound, because the wheat becomes chometz by the fact that he chews it. It gets mixed in with the spit and it becomes chometz. And when he puts it on the mak and leaves it there for 18 minutes, it'll be over by Motzah, like the Rabbeinu Benoach says. Mishnah Berurah adds, even if he put it on the mak before Pesach, he has to take it off when Erev Pesach. Only if it's no longer worthy to be, even a dog won't eat it. And he adds further that if a goy chewed it and he gives it to a Jew to put on Pesach, it's mutorim if the Jew doesn't have to have a responsibility for it, because Chometz shel goy is not over by Yerah. And even though the Chometz of a goy is also ma'ano and Pesach, still, since the Isser is Medivrei Seifrim, because you don't benefit from it in this way, this is not a benefit. They weren't geyser when a person is sick and it's mutter. But still, if he can do the same action of healing with putting on chitim with May Paris, which we said before does not cause as much chibutz, therefore you shouldn't use spit. When Mishnah Berurah adds, this is only when there's no sakona. Obviously, when there's no sakona, then even if he's over by Motzah, meaning it's real chometz, if this it definitely works, the refuah, then we are required, not only permitted to do so, we're required to do so. The Chaber writes, hardel, mustard, or other types of dippings that have water, you don't put into them flour. Mishnah Berurah says, other types of dippings, that means anything that you dip meat and it has vinegar or something that causes chibutz, and they used to put it in kemach because kemach would also become chometz. He explains the Macham is talking only when there's water, but if there's no water, it's Peirush HaMeir, water juice, water from fruits. They do not cause actual chibutz. Macham continues. If you put it into the charnel, you should eat it right away because it didn't become chometz. Mishnah Berurah explains, because the strength of the charnel and its sharpness doesn't leave the kemach become chometz. Therefore, you'll be able to eat it if you won't wait. But if he puts it into other things that aren't that strong like charnel, they'll become chometz, and he has to burn it after the time of Yisra chometz. And he adds further that the Divrei Mechaber, there, according to his shita, Peiros without water do not cause chometz. Ramah is of the opinion, like Rashi, that Peiros without water are also machmer, and therefore anything that's made with vinegar or wine with flour is forbidden, even when there's no water. The Rambam says that the minhag is not to eat chardal on Pesach because it's like kitnius. The people, which in Ashkenaz, they did not eat anything that flour could be made of because they would gather it together, and just like you do by other kitnias, therefore you shouldn't have a mistake about what is permitted and what isn't permitted by kitnias. They forbade anything that's gathered together in that fashion. And we have concluded Halacha Yutes.